Why was this so powerful for me? I want to start there. All of the tools that I'm going to share with you have been personally very profound in my own experience. So while I'm not a certified expert in any of them, I can absolutely tell you my own story of what kind of transformation each of the tools was able to create within my life. Every single one of them changed my life. And first off, StrengthsFinder. We talked about that where, I was introduced to that around age 18. And then it was at 25, 26 where I got really into Myers-Briggs. And before that, I wasn't really on any kind of like self-awareness journey. I was ladder climbing. I was trying to get promoted at work. That's like my whole focus at that point. And then I really fell down the rabbit hole of Myers-Briggs, and that happened. Some of you may have even heard me tell this story before. It's on my channel somewhere, a couple times maybe. But I was engaged, and my would have been mother-in-law, Carla, she, for starters, she is an extrovert, heavily extroverted, and she is really dominant in feeling where I'm dominant in thinking. And so right off the bat, like it was very clear to me that we are wired very differently. And you fast forward, it's kind of a long story. We got engaged and something in her personality, she was triggered. I have the word for it now. Like she was triggered into a growth cycle of her own, but she didn't handle it very well. And went like, kind of what I felt like was piling expectations on me. I should do the work on this whole story, by the way. Piling expectations on me that like did not align with my true nature. It's just like we were talking about last time where, in situations with other people, we find ourselves in a moment sometimes where there's what my true nature wants and needs in this moment, and then there's what the culture is expecting of me. And the culture in this situation was she is looking at me as her daughter-in-law. I was now her possession, and therefore I needed to dance in a particular way. And if you know me, that's just not going to happen. And I wasn't so much like having a hard time saying no. I understand for other people like that can be the hurdle all by itself. Like I definitely knew my answer was no, and I knew I wanted to say no, and that I was going to, because I wasn't going to put myself into situations where I would suffer on purpose. But at the same time, it ate me up inside. And this is the part that like really, really got to me. It ate me up inside that she was mad at me. I like couldn't handle it. That she was mad at me because I was like, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just following my own true nature. That's all I'm doing. I'm doing what is in alignment with who I really am. I had enough of a sense of myself at that time to know that that was true. I'm not doing anything to you. How can I help you to understand that like I'm just not going to be able to live up to your expectations? I just can't. And this situation can go one of two ways. Either you can keep your expectations and suffer because I'm failing, or you can let go of them and appreciate the soul that I am. And obviously, I can't do anything about her keeping her expectations. That's her business. But I was like, I can do my best to, like in my like, 25, 26-year-old brain, I was like, I'm going to sell her on how awesome I really am. Like she wants me to do all these things that I'm just never going to do. For example, she wanted me to call her on my way home from work. I had a 30-minute drive because we lived a little ways out in one of the suburbs of Dallas. And she wanted me to call her on my way home to like talk every day. And I'm like, no, no. I don't even call my own mom every day. I don't call anybody every day. I don't talk on the phone at all in my personal life because my work at that time was being on the phone and like talking to other people, being in meetings all day. It was just like people all everywhere you looked at work, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And here I am, like heavily introverted. As soon as I can get away from people, I'm not going back until I have to. Like, that's just how I operate. So yeah, it was kind of like that, like just more of a social requirement that she was putting on the situation that like I was just never going to be able to deliver. And so I open up this email and I'm gonna like explain it to her. I'm just gonna like lay it all out there, and I'll spend as long as I need like putting this email together, and she'll get it. Like, it's gonna be awesome. She's gonna get it. She's gonna see like I'm great just the way I am. I don't need to jump through the hoops that she's saying I need to. And also looking back now, I see how what I was doing was kind of defensive versus like appreciating her and the way she was different. Like, I was basically asking her to appreciate me, and I wasn't appreciating her. I can see that now, but at the time, this is where my healing journey was, and this is what my next step forward towards peace was, to be able to explain it to her who I was. And so I opened the email and I'm like majorly stumped for, I don't know, weeks. Like, it was definitely not what I thought it was going to be, because in trying to write that email, I found a gigantic gap in my conscious understanding of myself. And learning about Myers-Briggs was like what happened. Like, basically, when I couldn't put it into words, I went to Pinterest to find quotes that like described me, and I'll just send her the quotes. You know, I could like write some paragraphs in between the quotes and like, yeah, that'll do it. And yeah, so I started a Pinterest board called INTJ Female, and now that Pinterest board has thousands of pins because it really launched my self-awareness journey of like, when I looked at the INTJ Myers-Briggs personality type and I read the 16 personalities report that it gives you of like all the different chapters and like read through all of it, the part that stood out the most, well, let me back up a sec. When I read the whole report, I cried because I felt like in my whole life, I have never been understood. And then here is this thing in front of me that is telling me who I am in words on paper. Oh my, like, it blew my mind that there was a name for it. There was like a name for this part. There was a name for this part. There was like, holy shit. And the part that really changed my life and like got me headed on the direction that I'm still headed in today was the strengths and weaknesses page, because being the creature that I was at the time, I jumped straight to the weaknesses and proceeded to be like, yep, guilty, guilty, guilty. Like, look at you, you're awful. Like how Elizabeth Gilbert, like, she's like, I'm history's greatest monster. She's the dearest, sweetest soul you've ever laid eyes on. And still, she worries sometimes that she's a terrible person or that she's a bad person. And back then, I wasn't worried about it because I already knew that I'm a terrible person. I'm a bad person. And so when I read the list of weaknesses, I mean, there's no new information here. I know I'm terrible in all of these ways. And then a little voice said, yeah, but to be fair, there's strengths. Like, you scrolled past that part. Like, I wonder what they would have to say about, you know, what are the strengths? What are the good parts? And I almost was like, not like reluctant, because obviously I read it, but like I just wasn't as tuned in to even caring to know like what my strengths were. And thankfully I went against where I was tuned, and like, even though I wasn't super curious, I still looked at the strengths, and I still just remember like crying because, again, I'm like resonating with true, and realizing in that moment, you're telling me that everybody can't do this stuff? I thought everybody could do this stuff. I thought this was how a brain worked. Like, I didn't know that these things on the strengths list, like, I didn't know that was special about me. I had no idea. And, like, literally no idea. I thought everybody's brain worked like this. And that's why when I would run into such, like, massive interpersonal conflict with other people, which was basically the definition of my experience up until that point, there was just, like, a tremendous, like, a mountain of self-blame on me, because clearly everybody's brain works like this. I had never even considered that other people can't do what my brain does. Never even considered. I thought we all had the same equipment, which technically we kind of do, and at the same time, like, none of us are working with the same brain at all. We all have our own. They're all unique. They're all magical and brilliant in their own way. And that was, like, mind-blowing for me. It was like a level of self-confidence that I had never had access to before. It was like, it felt balancing in terms of my whole story up until that point about who am I was the list of weaknesses. It was everything that was wrong with me, the horrid creature, the disgusting, vile creature that I was. That was my story about who I was. And that list of strengths blew my mind wide open to, there's a balance. I gave up the things that created my weaknesses. I gave up those skills because it let me have this. It gave me access to this. There's no loss that happened. I cried and cried and cried my whole life about, like, why, like, I mean, I didn't know the list of weaknesses yet, but all those things, like, I struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled and felt sorry for myself for so long for struggling with those things. And all it was like an imbalanced perception of not giving credit to, yeah, like, when you can't fly, then you're really great at being on the ground. Like, there's a different skill set that opens up. When you take this one offline, it gives you this. So I had never given myself credit for all of the good things. I had only ever focused myself on the bad things. And Myers-Briggs was my beginning of opening myself up to there being a redeeming worth or value or quality to who I was.